Hello, everybody, and welcome to Late Night Football. Welcome to well, not really a transfer reaction show, but more of a transfer analysis show, I think. And it's a depressing time to be a United fan, and I know some of you might be wondering that the 50 people who watch the show probably wondering why we've not done more shows about United, about transfers happening, because I thought it'd be a very busy period. But then every morning I wake up and I realize everybody else is doing shit, doing stuff, and Man United are not, and it just gets me depressed, and I don't feel like doing videos. I just don't feel like talking about other teams, the Holland and Nunez and all these great people, and then we have Man United just monitoring and stuff. So that's why. But then that just to share into the depression, I've got guests here to talk about Manchester United's summer activity or lack of it. Yeah, we've got Farhan back on the show. Farhan, welcome once again. Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me again, man.
Yeah, it's a long intro. I hope you're doing well. And we got Mike back as well. Mike, welcome once again. It's a pleasure to have you.
Guys, good to see you again.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get right into it. Mike, we'll start with you for this one because Farhan and I, we were here about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I was here as well. And we're talking about the end of the season, and we're talking about how the season has been a disaster. We want to get behind it. Optimistic about what's going to come forward. There's a lot of things. There was a lot of restructuring that happened. There was a lot of, talk about, well, this is going to be a new reset, a new United, a restart, all of that stuff. And here we are 3 or 4 weeks later. And nothing's changed really, if you think about it. There've been some changes, probably not ones that we wanted anyway, but those have been changed. But the things still remain the same. It seems more things change, the more they remain the same, as I say. And so I ask you, Mike, what's changed? Do you think anything has changed? Do you think we've been fed a bunch of lies once again?
Yeah, good question. It does feel a bit of same old, same old. Although I guess it's still pretty early in the transfer window, so I can appreciate that. I mean, some of it's the same old, same old. Apparently, United looked at Nunez and like, nah, we don't think he's good enough for us. So, so let's let Liverpool pay, what is it, 85 million pounds for him. But and this is what Liverpool does, right? They get their business done early, every transfer window, and then they're done. And we're, I don't know. I was thinking earlier, is United in a really kind of in a rock and a hard place where it kind of has no leverage, It's got lots of money, so other teams know they can hold out if they want. Also, with maybe certain players, they're not as keen, perhaps, to come right now because it's not just that the team is in not a great state, but the organization is. Although, as you were mentioning, I do think things really seem to be solidifying well, kind of behind the scenes. There's more of a football structure, it sounds like, which is good. But yeah, it's it's hard, right? The transfer window's basically just begun, so it's hard to be patient, especially when City already has Haaland. Liverpool got Nunez, right? To now where City's going to get Cucurella and like all they're bang 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 and they're done, and we're still twiddling our thumbs. So I think. And we're being linked again with what, like 20 different players. Certain players do seem to have more traction, but so I don't know. I'm trying to be patient, but it's already getting a bit antsy.
Yeah, well, it makes some point, but actually, here's the thing. Is it really fine, feel free to jump into this one, but is it really early? Because think about it, I just saw the report that Liverpool are about to sign Calvin Ramsey, and that's their last business. They're done. That Liverpool are concluding their business, right? And forget Liverpool and City. Spurs are going on and making all the signings that they need to make. Apparently their business will be done soon. They're going to get Bissouma as well. Is it really early? Because I feel like United need to make signings early. Because in 3 weeks we'll be back in preseason. In about a month's time, and the fixtures are already out. By the way, and I'll talk about at the end what I think about that. But it's all happening quickly because we're running out. Yeah. I just feel like we're running out of time, even though I know it's early or whatever. But reality is it's a very short window, and things are moving very, very quickly everywhere else except at Man United. Fine. Yeah. And about the money part, actually, there's an interesting report of the money, but I'll come to that. But I'll just go to Farhan. What do you think about this whole situation?
Yeah, it's sorry. It's kind of interesting. On one hand, I agree with Mike. I think it is kind of early, and I won't echo. I feel the same sentiments he said. But one thing that we're not pointing out is that Ten Hag is also a new coach, and like his wants are fairly new to, you know, he was hired maybe 2 months ago, whereas like the Liverpool, you know, Man City and Tottenham all probably identified their targets maybe as early as January, you know, because those coaches were in place at that time. So on the flip side, I'm not, and this is in no way like, you know, giving credit to Man United. I just think that they're trying to do the best that they can, given the fact that they've lost a few people. Like Matt Judge is gone, who's our negotiator. We've lost
You said we lost them. I don't feel like they're lost, but okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, depending on how you look at it, yeah. But they still, we don't have a negotiator, regardless of how you look at it. We don't have a lead negotiator going into this transfer window, along with, I think, the head of scouting or whatnot. They've also left, and, you know, good riddance depending on how you see it as well. But still, those are pieces that need to be filled, and they're likely filled by people who are new to the organization. But you know, 2 weeks still. And the last thing I want to say was that there was the European Cup, that
Nations League.
Yes, Nations League was happening at this point, that just ended. So those are the benefit of the doubts that I'm giving them, and that's as far as it goes. But,
You know, but again, I do feel that a lot of that, yes, there is mitigating circumstances, of course, but I just feel that those are excuses. I just look at the excuses. I mean, Nations League, well, do the agents play the Nations League? They don't. Clubs don't play in the Nations League, right? You can still, I mean, you know, it didn't stop City and Liverpool from getting deals done, right? So you can get deals done. It's a matter of a look. And that, you know, the good point that you made about the structure and the scouting is something. They had a guy in place who knew the players that they should go for. You know, his name was Rangnick, in case anybody's forgotten. And he had this whole list, and now you just sacked them. They just sacked him. And they said, go, you know, do your thing with Australia. We don't need you. They sacked him. Whatever else they might say, they sacked him. So, you know, and it's just, to me, it seems like, you know, they had all, if you look at them, if you remember with January, the kind of players that we were linked to, you know, the Kamaras, the, you know, Zakaria and Hedara, not that there's all A's in it, but yeah, you know, all these guys, Kone and all of those guys, it's all like, you know, players that were not on anyone's radar. They're like, you know, players who probably like 20, 30 million pound players at most, and they're cheap players, they're not, you know, young players hungry. Now we link to all of these big names, you know, Jong, Nunez, you know, Timber, Pau Torres. I mean, Pau Torres, by the way, is just another, for me, it's just a Spanish Harry Maguire, but still, whatever. But you get all these, you know, I mean, I know I'm being harsh. He's probably a better ball player than Harry Maguire, but he's still quite slow. But I just feel, Mike, that we're back again to the whole same old thing about scouting big names rather than getting the players. And again, you have got a list, and he doesn't seem to want to, they don't seem to want to work through that. It's almost like they've decided that they're just going to go all on their own. And then that's just, you know, it's again back to that same old point of trying to chase big names rather than going for players who might actually want to come to the club.
Yeah, and I think that's where maybe you know, the whole De Jong thing is really interesting. Where I was thinking today, if they do get him, maybe that's like the first domino, right? Because from what I read, you know, he's Ten Hag's like #1 guy. He wants him to start the project, and he's there. Barcelona is willing to sell, and they already rejected one offer apparently. So. And so part of me is also, like I said earlier, you know, United's in a bit of a tough spot because, you know, teams will kind of fleece them, so to speak. But on the other hand, pay the money. I mean, De Jong's maybe not entirely convinced about coming, but he had, you know, really came to prominence under Ten Hag, and I think there's, you know, there's something there. So I almost wonder if that goes through, that would be like the first domino to fall, and that maybe there's Timber. That maybe Dumfries they're talking about now, you know, and I think Antony is also another target. So, you know, I mean, I have to admit, I think actually wasn't United even linked with Nunez back in the January window, where he would have been a lot cheaper.
He was
than
Rangnick had recommended him. That said to sign him,
yeah.
and they rejected it.
So, but I think
sorry, I hate to break your domino effect, but it looks very likely that De Jong will not move because Barcelona have got the funding that they need. They've almost agreed with that. So the 700 million euro deal is almost done. So that means they will probably be fine unless they decide they want to sell him to raise money for other targets, but they don't need to sell him anymore. So now it's a question of, well, will United, so that means they can charge 100 million pounds, which United will never pay. So, you know, we're kind of, you know, stuck in that situation where, again, we wasted 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks trying to convince a player who doesn't really want to come, and who now the club doesn't need to sell. So
I mean, I think, and I agree with Farhan that, maybe one thing to keep in mind is, Ten Hag's still fairly new. And it's a great point that, City and Liverpool already have that structure in place. There's Guardiola's way of playing, there's Klopp's way of playing. They know which players will fit that system. They go get them, and and they find these guys like this Ramsey. I mean, and then they work him in. So I think, we're hopefully at the beginning of something like that, but that's going to take. I mean, what did Klopp needed 2-3 years, right? Guardiola needed about 2 years to really kind of reshape the team. So, I mean, I'm also interested in, moving people on, not just end of contracts, but let's sell some players too, like move them out.
and
I don't know if you wanted to talk about this, but I think
yeah, we do.
there might also be guys there already who could
And
fill
that's
some roles.
and that's the second part, right? Okay, fine, players don't want to come for hand, but surely you can move players on. But it looks like they're struggling with that as well. Dean Henderson, for example, is not going to go on loan. I mean, like just sell him for 30. You could sell him for 25, but you're giving him a loan. Martial looks like he doesn't want to leave. Pereira, they've already rejected an offer. Apparently, they've got a better offer from someone else. I don't know where that's coming from, but they've rejected that. So, in the same with Eric Bay, Phil Jones, I mean, there's players they can move on, but for some reason, they just, again, inaction on that side as well, but they don't seem to want to act quickly.
Well, yeah, the thing is, like, you also have to look at the history. The last person, we spoke about this. The last person we sold in a plus was probably the last two is Dan James and Cristiano Ronaldo. So, we don't have a real history of like moving on from players in a good way. So this is United trying to change the narrative, I guess, in some respect, and trying to gain back as much money as they can or recoup, because I see teams like Chelsea doing that. Like, look, they're trying to do the same with Lukaku, where they loan him out and probably try to recoup at least half of the transfer deal that they gave away. So I think that's what we're seeing here. It's not looking good because we don't have quality players that are sellable, I guess, to an extent. But I think this is just like their hard reset. I feel like I'm giving these questions are making me defend Man United in some respect, and in no way am I trying to. No, and in no way am I trying to. I just think that this is what's happening right now in respect to those things,
But I mean, that's the salt issue. I mean, if you're trying to raise money, right, you look at the assets that you have. You could easily sell players. I mean, it's not that hard to find a buyer for Dean Henderson. Surely you can get someone 20-25 for him. You can get some money for Brandon Williams now that he's had a good season in the Premier League. You could get money for Axel Tuanzebe. You could get those kind of deals in. It just, and I don't know. And again, and I have a point about this, which I will come to next. But it just feels like there's just inaction. It's almost like they're just waiting for something to click, something to happen. I don't know what they're waiting for, Mike, but it just seems like the nothing's moving, nothing's happening. That's the worst part. Nothing's happening. I think that's just, we want something to happen, but nothing's happening.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know entirely what may be going on behind the scenes. I mean, I don't think
going on behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, I don't think United's like sitting on their hands and
agreed,
twiddling their thumbs and staring into space. But yeah, it's frustrating, especially when you see how quickly other teams can move. But I mean, everybody knew Haaland was going to City, so that's not a surprise. The Nunez thing, not entirely surprised in some ways. So yeah, when you see those teams going bang, 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 it's hard. But I think, again, Farhan made a good point about Ten Hag is new. But on the other hand, he like came to United the day after Ajax won the championship, and like came and he got to it. So, and I'm sure he was in talks well beforehand. Like I, read about how he basically chewed like Fletcher and Murtough out, and so on. And so I think they've known the players he's wanted for a long time. So I think it is also a fair point to say like, hey, like, why isn't there movement? Okay, if that guy's stalling or that team's stalling, plan B. So where's the plan B? Like, why are Spurs getting Bissouma? I mean, he was sent to United back in the, why don't we go for this guy?
Done for 25 million.
Be an upgrade.
Yeah. 25 million
so
like the price.
Yeah.
So
why do these teams like snag those players? And like you said, I think it's a fair point, Rohit, that we kind of put all our eggs in one basket and wait
Yes.
and wait and wait and wait. And,
Yeah.
you know,
And we'll come to that because there is 10 things that I need to talk about Erik Ten Hag as well, which I will say for the end. But just talk about players themselves, Mike. I mean, so one of the things that I expected was that as soon as the window starts, we'll start seeing at least one big player sort of being linked with the move away. Basically, him just coming in and saying, you know, somebody's got to go. Like the head's got to roll. That's basically what I think is the expression, head's got to roll. And so I was hoping that maybe somebody, not necessarily be sold, but it's somebody, you know, like being rumored to be going away or something like that. But all the players who've been bad last season, they're all still there. I mean, you know, you got Maguire is still there. I think Maguire is going to be the captain, by the way. That's going to kill me. You know, but I think Maguire is going to be captain next season. I just have a feeling for that, and I'll come to that in a second. But you know, Rashford is still hanging around, like quite, you know, is there. Martial is quite comfortably hanging around. You got, you know, same with wan-Bissaka. Apparently was going to be gone, but nobody wants him. So it looks like all the players that have underperformed last season, they're still going to be there. And again, it comes back to, is it player power? Is it the fact that they've basically all, you know, gone and spoken to the board and say, you know, they're not better not say anything bad about us, you know, and we all want another chance. Is that something that's happened? You think at the back again that the board doesn't want to upset the players by, you know, trying to offload any of them?
Well, one, I hope not. And secondly, one of the, I mean, I read when Ten Hag got hired, I tried to read as much as I could. And it sounds like, for me, it sounded like we would almost get something of a return of a Ferguson mentality. If you're not pulling your weight, if you're not doing what you need to do, you sit or you're gone. And I really think that's what we need. And I think partly my sense is that's why Ten Hag was hired. Like it's time for some tough love and some deep surgery. Now, yeah, I mean, you know, I think Rashford last season, I think is a blip. Something was going on, you know, recovering from injury and surgery. He's not suddenly a bad player. Maybe just the coaching wasn't there, things like that. But yeah, you know, if wan-Bissaka has been identified as ultimately not good enough, sell him, move him on, take a loss, you know, create the space. I also have read, you know, Ten Hag is certainly going to look at the academy players. So, you know, you've got Hannibal, James Garner had a great season at Nottingham Forest, for example. You know, and even Van de Beek, you know, can come back and be almost like a new signing, depending.
But don't say that, Mike. Oh my God, new signing.
I don't know. You know, he was
Oh.
nominated for World Player Football of the Year,
I
you
know,
know, and he was with, so who knows? But yeah, I don't think they're sitting on their hands and twiddling their thumbs, to mix my metaphors. But it does seem weird that nothing concrete has come about either outgoings or getting somebody in. And I think right now, maybe most fans would just be happy with like somebody new.
Or something. You know, just tell me that somebody's leaving, right? That I want to see gone. Like if that would still be optimistic. I mean, no, to be honest, seriously, I mean,
addition by subtraction.
It almost feels like the players have got away with it. That's what I feel like. It's feel like, well, they were bad, and now they've gotten away with it. Like, oh yeah, that's cool. You know, we were bad under Rangnick, but nobody cares.
My sense is, I know my sense is, I don't think they know what's coming. From what I've read of Ten Hag, I mean, it sounds like on the one hand, he's an incredible like people guy. He really like gets to know his players. He like cares for them. He's got their back. But on the other hand, I don't think the players kind of know what's coming. I don't think they're going to be able to do the same things they've been doing. And quite frankly, who knows how much of this is maybe hearsay or not? But you know, Pogba not being there may help. For example, it may help the dressing room, the mood. If Lingard moves on, as somewhat sad as that is, that may change things as well. But I think, and maybe, you know, we got to give Ten Hag the start of the season. Maybe give him a season or half a season, and then he's got it. Then he'll go to work. He's got to see what he's got, right? So
yeah, and I hope that happens. But fine. I mean, one issue might be wages. I mean, you know, if you think about it, I mean, you know, wan-Bissaka is on very good money at United, you know, and somebody comes in and says, well, we'll give you the transfer. They've got to pay a transfer fee, and they've also got to pay the wages. And I don't think he's worth the wages United are paying. I don't think anybody is, to be honest, but that's, you know, here neither here there. So those guys can just be like, well, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay here. And so then, you know, is that a problem as well for United? No, we know they like to penny pinch. So
absolutely. Yeah, our wage structure. And that's going back to De Jong. That's why I was a bit weary about getting him, because his wage his wages are like 300. I think he's on 350,000 pounds a week.
Yeah.
He would come in as one of the top earners immediately on the team, and it's just like, what are you going to pay him for that new contract? 500, is he worth it? Personally, I don't know. So I was a bit teetering on that fact, because we have players that come into this team, get healthy wage, because that's really if you really think about it, at this point in time, that's in our arsenal. Like, we can really like outbid a team by providing high wages, but is that beneficial to us in that sense? So we've seen in the past with Alexis Sanchez, how difficult that was to get off the books. And now we see with Martial, who's out of favor in Sevilla, coming back. What's his future looking like? He might not even want to play for this team. No one's going to pay him $250,000 a week. So yeah, of course our wage structure is needs changing. And if that's what's happening, that's what I mean. Like, in general, if all of these slow processes that are happening are due to this ridiculous thing that we created in terms of like our wage structure, our transfer policy and stuff like that, and this is us getting it right for the future, I'm okay with that. But I have no faith that it is right now. I'm just hoping on that fact. And just want to add to Mike about Ten Hag. I think that's going to be our biggest signing this summer for sure. Him, because
for sure
he's like he's like the real coach. The last real coach we probably had was like maybe Van Gaal, who's like talked about a system. Mourinho was more about of a name, and then how the last Ole was. So essentially, he's a real X's and O guy, and I think a lot of these players might benefit from us, like might look better in a system. And I mean all of them, honestly. Like, even though they don't necessarily deserve a chance, I truly believe like this guy is going to bring something to this team that we've never seen. I'm hoping, and I'm really excited about him more than any transfer that's coming in. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But for that, he will need players, and that's where it is. Now we'll talk about Erik Ten Hag, because I mean, I like Erik Ten Hag. He's a fan appointment. I like him, and he's obviously, hopefully we're all optimistic. We're all optimistic. My optimism has dampened considerably, and I'll talk about it. But it has, because there are a few red flags. And I feel like we need to be impartial. I think we need to be, we not need to look at both sides, because we're guilty of this as fans. We kind of get too excited. We kind of get too carried away. And then it all comes crashing down and everything just burns.
What's the point of being a fan if you can't get excited, man? Come on.
No, I allow myself to get excited, but at the same time, you got to temper that excitement at the same time, not to get carried away. And I think the one issue that I have now is again, I go back far, and I think we talked about this we talked about Ten Hag's first interview. And what did he say? I need to assess. I need to look at the players. They finished second. This team has got great potential. And he talked about Maguire being, a great player who's contributed a lot. Contributed a lot. But he contributed a lot. And I almost laughed when he said that. But now I'm worried that it might be real. I mean, I just feel, because this is a report that's come out, is that he wants to assess these players. And I feel that's a mistake. I don't think he should be putting time towards assessing some of these players. Some of these players need to go. He doesn't need to assess them. Because beyond what we may think about whether they're good enough or not, and they're not, you're wasting time. You're wasting time in assessing these players when you could be spending time maybe giving youngsters a chance, maybe bringing new players, because these guys are taking up spot space. I just feel that's a mistake. I don't think you should be giving players a chance. But what do you think? Do you think I'm saying, or not all of these players, but do you think there are certain players who shouldn't be given a second chance and who should be offloaded?
Well, that's to get to the short answer is from the season I was watching, I agree with you. Some of these players don't deserve a chance. We've talked about them. We've named a few in the show, but I can see, like, if we were being practical from the team standpoint, like Man United as an organization, I think they brought in a coach that would also adhere to what they need as well. And I think Ten Hag kind of sold them on that idea. Like, I can work with, the less of a team. I've done it before. I've built a team in the past, and I think that's what's kind of the organization kind of got sold on, the idea that this guy can come in and maybe be somewhat of a Fergie, where he takes a bit less than what he should be getting and making magic out of it. And I don't think that's a great recipe. Do I think? But to add to the second point about the team, I think yes, some of these guys don't deserve to play, in the sense of like they haven't shown any respect to the team, respect to the club in terms of like their playing style for the most part. But that doesn't mean that there won't be younger guys that are coming in. And he meant assessing, you know, the guys that were on loan as well. Maybe he meant assessing the youngsters. Maybe he meant assessing the seniors as well. But I think he would probably like to know. He took Daley Blind and made him into an amazing center back, because he was able to recognize that his skills as a passer is much better than a center back and positioned him in that way. So, you know, we don't know what Ten Hag is thinking in terms of like tactically speaking. He's shown himself to be, you know, he took Tadic, who was on Southampton, on his way out and turned him into, you know, a remarkable football player in a system. So that's, I understand when he says that he needs to assess, but on the flip side, like, you know, when the bad goes bad, we're gonna be like, listen, what were you doing? Not watching any tape? Maguire has like 50 YouTube clips of his
he just had another one with England, so you know, where supposedly he's
yeah, exactly. There's a comp being made about him every single day, so it's like, yeah, I see your point of view, but I also get Ten Hag's point as to him wanting to assess.
And that means, you know, my second point, Mike, because is this a cover from the board, from the club again, where they're going, well, Ten Hag, you know, the squad in a second, it's not that bad. You know, Rangnick was crap, you know, he didn't know how to handle the squad. You're better. You can do more with the squad. And again, you know what that means? We're not spending money because, you know, we don't want, we need dividend money. So we're not going to spend money on the squad. Do you feel that's, I feel, you know, and these are all conspiracy theories that go on in my head, and, you know, I've explored all of these things, but, you know, do you feel like that's also a factor as well, that maybe they thought, you know, well, you know, you're a good coach, you can coach these guys. They finished second last season, you know, the season before, you know, you don't need to spend money, you know, we don't need to give you 200 million, you know, you can work with 100 and make this work. Is that also, you know, something that you think is possible? And, you know, all of the noble intentions of Erik Ten Hag aside, and we're talking about the board intentions, is that probably something that they're also thinking?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm that cynical yet.
Mike, you're never coming on the show again. You're never coming on the show.
I mean, but to the point about assess and what Ten Hag said about Maguire, I was like, okay, he knows how to play the politics. He's not going to come right out and say, yeah, Maguire was awful and crap, and I want him gone. I mean, this is the captain. He's like, what did we spend 80 million on the guy? He's not going to like throw him under the bus, and he's not even actually like at the club yet. So I think that was Ten Hag just being like shrewd, so to speak, playing the politics. I do think once training starts, once the players are there, once Ten Hag starts getting them to learn what he wants them to do, and if players don't do it, they don't work. And from what I've read about Ten Hag and players who play for him, he's like all about everyone plays for the team. And if anything, you know, that really seemed to be one thing that was lacking, especially, you know, in sort of the latter several games of the season, for instance. And, you know, as much as, you know, Rangnick had a bit of a, I don't know, sort of sad exit, so to speak, he spoke some hard truths. And, you know, and I do think some people, at least at United, were listening. I think things are changing behind the scenes. Again, you know, as Farhan mentioned, I think a bit earlier, that's going to take time. But I don't know. I mean, there's the potential for Ten Hag to take Rashford and unlock a player that's you know, been there for a while, just had a really bad season. And you know, he's got some players to work with, but I think, you know, that was him playing politics. But I think assess also, from what I understand with Ten Hag, isn't just about the player's like ability as a footballer. It's about the person. And I think he needs to kind of get to know the squad in that way a bit too. So it's hard. I mean, as Farhan mentioned earlier too, I mean, you know, when we're constantly comparing ourselves, so to speak, to Liverpool and City, like they're 4 years ahead to where we want to be.
I mean,
we may not need 4 years to get there, but so yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm not as jaded yet as you, Rohit, maybe not as cynical, but I think you're not. I think it's fair to wonder if, you know, there are these things with the board, and, you know, and we know that they would renew certain players' contracts just to like maintain or increase their value, unrelated really to football, and so It's a very knotty problem, and it's going to take a while to undo the knot, so to speak.
Time, I don't know. I mean, I agree with that. I agree with, you might be able to convert certain players. Like, I'm not talking about specifically about any one player, but there are players in that team that I know and you know, and we all know, they're not going to become 10 high players. Like, no matter how hard you try, you're not going to, and many of them have probably been checked out. I mean, it's not like Erik, for example, has not played at all last season much, and he's not suddenly going to be, a player who's going to play 40 games, 50 games a season. He's not. He's just too injury prone. So let him go on. You've got someone like Axel Tuanzebe who's never got a chance, who I thought he should be given a chance, but hasn't been given. They're not going to use him. Why take him on preseason? Let him go. Same with Brandon Williams. Same with maybe they probably keep Telles and Shaw, and probably Fred and McDonald will probably stay there. But someone like Phil Jones, let him go. And there's others as well. And I'm just picking names out. Dean Henderson, let him go. You don't need to assess these players. Just some players need to go. Just you save for space that way. But it just, I don't know, it just feels like people want to drag their heels. That's just what I think. Fine, you were going to say something. You're muted, by the way. You're muted.
My apologies. But to your point, Rohit, like those players don't necessarily, to me personally, they don't affect the team that in the outside of Maguire, maybe Shaw, but those two, the rest of them, yes, we can get rid of them, but it doesn't really make the first team better. And I think the whole point of this transfer window should be getting guys that make the first team better.
But here's the thing: they do make the first team better. How? Because apparently United only have 100 million pounds, 120 million pounds. That's the budget that they have. Just 120 million pounds, right? That's all they have.
Oh, I see your point.
The rest of the money has got to come from sales. So that's where, if you sell them, you easily get 30, 40 million pounds for all those players that I mentioned. You can easily get that. Now you got a player, 40 million pounds gets you, defender. It gets you a defender that you can get. So that way they do. And the thing is and of course, if you keep them in the squad, the morale, they're probably not that happy anyway to be there. They don't know if they're going to play. You might as well get rid of them, right? And of course, not to mention, if you're carrying a Bailly, if you're carrying a Tuanzebe, you have less space to carry somebody else who might turn out to be a better player from the youth squad, and you don't get a chance to assess. And that's just my opinion. I just feel like it's wasting time on things that don't need to be wasted. But we'll move on. Just final notes, of course, and then I'll talk about the schedule when I think about that. But the last thing on Frenkie de Jong, this is the latest news that I've got. I'm not going to say that it's a very breaking news or whatever, but this is what I've heard, is that apparently Ten Hag is very keen on Frenkie de Jong. And so he has basically asked United to keep, and this is me defending the Glazers, by the way, in case anybody's like, he's basically said that he wants him. And so therefore he's willing to wait to see Barcelona lower their price before, he feels that he needs him. So that's his top player, that is top priority. He said he needs him. Now, why does that stall other deals? Is because United, again, only have 120 million. So whether you pay 70 or whether you pay 100, that determines then whether you can spend on other players. Now, imagine if you spend 70 million on Frenkie de Jong, Farhan, that leaves you 50 million to buy what? What are you going to buy? Because you can either buy a Pau Torres or you can buy an Antony. And you might not be able to buy either because they're probably both maybe 60 million pounds. But that's literally all you can buy. So in a season where we said we need 4 or 5 players, we're all doing math and we're trying to figure out who we can get. You might only get 3 players because you might get Eriksen on a free transfer. That's literally all you can get. And who's at fault here? I mean, is it Erik Ten Hag for being stubborn, that he wants a player that he knows is probably going to affect his budget? Or is it, the Glazers for not giving more money? Who's at fault? Is there anybody at fault?
Oh man, I can't. Well, yeah, who's at fault?
There you go, right? Who do you blame? And
who do you blame? It's like, do you have another 30 minutes? Because we can point out a few people. But no, I think it's the team. The team. We do have another 30 minutes.
You don't have it because you got to be somewhere else, right?
Yeah. But I just mean, I just mean in general. If I had to choose, it's the team, because Ten Hag just came here and he has a system and a belief that he can be fulfilled with FTG. So if he believes that Frenkie can do that, so I can see that being a priority. But the problem to me about this whole transfer window is that Frenkie, it doesn't matter if he gets Frenkie or if he re-signs Pogba, which is not happening obviously, but gets the best central midfielder in the world. We don't have a CDM to support them, and that person is going to struggle regardless. And I've not heard, to be honest, I if all the links and the names that I've heard tied to Man United, I've yet to hear a CDM. Personally, maybe Rohit, you got your sources and whatnot, but I don't know anybody. And I think
the latest is that Vitinha from Porto is apparently seen as a CDM. that team on. But he's not really a CDM, but apparently they see him as a CDM. So that is whether he's supposed to be the Matic replacement. That is the latest that I have heard. Now, I don't know how true it is. I'm not going to claim that this is some kind of big source, but that's what I've heard. Now, I don't think he is. From what I've seen of him on YouTube, he doesn't seem like, he seems like another Frankie de Jong, to be honest, which is not a bad.
Oh, there is another one I've heard. I think he plays for PSV.
Sangare, Bruno Sangare, Ibrahim Sangare, but there's not been any contact. So I think that's just paper talk. I don't think.
Okay, well,
Ruben Neves is the only other one.
So my point is essentially that, that role needs to be fulfilled. We need a CDM. It doesn't matter if Frankie comes in. I think that position has a gaping hole. As great as Ten Hag is, and tactical he is, I still think that position needs to be filled. So we talked about 3 or 4. It's looking like maybe 2, 3. But as long as, to me personally, maybe my standards have lowered. If we can get a CDM, I'd feel a bit better going into this season than I did last season. Because I think, though, even though we did those marquee signings, a lot of us felt that, we still have a gaping hole. We can't go into the season with McFred again and whatnot. And so we did. And I pray that we don't go again this season. So if Frankie and someone else do come in, take what I can get.
That's a good point. But we do know that Ten Hag doesn't play with an out-and-out CDM. So that is something to keep in mind. So I think he's probably trying to look for someone who can complement De Jong. I don't know who that is. And he's of course still got to look at McTominay and Fred, and I think they don't want to sell him. So that's I don't know who doesn't want to sell him, but somebody doesn't want to sell him. So it's got to keep them in mind as well. But let's final things. Mike, brother, sorry, see your name there, Mike. Sorry, that's a bit of a slip. Mike. The other thing is, if Ten Hag doesn't get the players that he wants in by August, now whether that's because of his own stubbornness or whatever. What do you see the season looking like? Because I'm really because if he has the same team that he starts with, I think this season is going to be worse than last one. But that's just my opinion. It's difficult. He doesn't get the players that he wants.
Yeah. Well, I think there are going to be growing pains anyways, but I actually don't think this season would be worse than this past season. I think almost no season for at least United could be as bad as this, unless we got relegated, for instance. And quite frankly, I lay most of the past season on the players. It just became so apparent in the last 5 to 8 matches. It was the players, and I think, I think once Ten Hag gets to start training with that team, and he's going to be there from the start. He's going to have the summer, or at least July and August. He's going to have 5-6 weeks. I'm sure. I think I read he's already he's going to contact players ahead of time, give them info on what they need to be doing and thinking about and stuff. So, and I think again from what I've read, he's going to start implementing his ideas, and apparently he's pretty strict about what he wants. And if you're not keeping up, or you're not doing it, you're on the bench or you're out. And maybe this is where we get some of those young guys in. I mentioned Garner earlier. It sounds like he could be that guy. He's young, but he had a great season at Nottingham Forest. His stats were incredible, and consistently. So it may be that maybe for the first half season, we don't get everybody we need. And I agree with Farhan. I mean, if anything, we need, even if it's not, we need something like a CDM. We need an upgrade in that area big time. And it's been a gaping hole for a long time. But quite frankly, I mean, we have the offense there. I mean, I think Ten Hag's going to be great for Sancho, for example. Elonga's already shown what he can do. So I think, to a certain extent, if we don't get all of what we want or hope for, at least there are some players there, and I think Ten Hag will change the mentality of the team, and that can be a big difference. That can make a big difference. Where players were struggling, they weren't interested. New coach, got to impress the coach, and if you don't want to impress the coach, you don't want to play, or you're not going to give it your all. I think he'll have no qualms, and I'm hoping he's got the backing of the structure around him to support him. And we started seeing end of last season, Rangnick was benching Maguire, so it's been done.
They benched
But
Rashford as well.
yeah, but no, I don't think this coming season will be as bad as last season. It may not be wonderful, but I think hopefully, in my sense is, if he really works on the mentality of the team, and I think that's a huge thing. And Farhan, what you said earlier, I think he's the biggest signing. I think he's gonna like be the guy. And so I think, as I said earlier, I think maybe some players may not know what they're in for, and things are going to change. And so I think even if he can get them mentally to be more consistent, to be tougher, to be more together, there are good players on that team, and that could change things. It could take a few games, it could take a couple weeks, but yeah.
Well, I hope I can share your optimism, both of yours. I hope I will try to get
like I
some
said,
of it
I'm
into
not too cynical just yet.
No, that's fine. I feel like I looked at the fixture list, and I obviously, if things are going the way that I think they are, and things can change, but if they are, I don't think they're going to get more than 5 points from the opening 6 games. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that. My problem is, that he is not, Erik ten Hag is not the choice of the board. He's not the choice of the players. He's not the choice of the media. They all want one person. And he's a fan appointment, and I'm just worried that they will all jump at him, right at him, and be like, well, this guy is not the right guy, get him out. What are they doing? And
see, I think that's exactly why he's the right guy.
Yeah, me too.
I believe he's the right guy. No, I like him. I like him, and I think I definitely want him to say, I want him to succeed. My worry is he's just gonna have to deal with so much, and there will come a point where because it's easy to change some fans' opinions, right? And then suddenly that whole thing becomes a storm, and then eventually the people will just turn on him and they'll just fire him. And bring in Pochettino, because that's who they want. They all want Pochettino. That's what for some reason. And we all know how. Yeah, I'm sorry.
They could have had him.
They could have had him, yeah.
But they couldn't, because the fans said they didn't want him, right? And so they need to listen. For once, they listened to us, and we got Erik ten Hag. Now it's like, well, what do the fans know? That's always the attitude of people in that position. What do the fans know? We know better than them. So it's always that, and that is a worry for me. That they're all waiting to be proven right or trying to prove themselves right. And that's my worry with this whole thing. So, I mean, I'm okay with waiting a little bit and seeing how things go, but I just have a feeling that there are some people who may not want to take that approach right at the top. And so
I just want to say, to echo Mike, I really urge, maybe you, Rohit, and others, whoever watches, about reading about this guy. He's really an impressive person, and
he is. I'm sure we've all read about him. I'm sure anybody who's read about him is very impressed.
I'm sure. I just mean, not to take away from Man United. Of course, Man United they serve critique, but even in that interview when he first gave to the press conference, you can see how short and concise he was about his answers. A lot different from Rangnick. And I appreciated Rangnick's truth. There was a breath of fresh air from what we've had from Ole, but I think, he's one of those people that keep things in-house and keeps those things that, that happen to the team within the team. And what was happening in the last few weeks and the last few months was just leaks after leaks about the dressing room, about this person doing that. And that's just a toxic environment that, I don't think any team wants to come into. So it's about changing the culture. And I think this guy can do that. It's really unfair to put it all onto him in terms of to bring back Man United to its greatness. But I'm impressed and I'm excited for him and his style of play for the most part. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's the people above him. That's the problem. It's not necessarily that it's a problem. I do think he's made a couple of mistakes already, but those are things that people do. But still on board with him. But it's just the people above him. We don't trust them, and that is a big problem.
We gotta get some optimism in you, man. It's just at
the end of the season, I was optimistic. I was like, it's a new season. The players. Everybody's talking about the structure change and this to that. Let's get a few signings in. Let's bring Timber. Timber was almost done. Now it's not done. It's almost not done. It's almost like Louis van Gaal is convinced him that he should not go to United. So that happened. Frenkie de Jong was 90% done. Now apparently Barcelona found the money, so he's not done anymore. Nunez has gone to Liverpool, so it just looks like United. And of course Bissouma is gone. They were never in for apparently, but Bissouma is gone. Kamara is gone. Everybody's going elsewhere. So it kind of dampens enthusiasm, because what is the club really doing? What is the long-term play that I'm not able to understand? So that's where I guess the trepidation comes from. And I've seen this movie too many times. So I'm hoping it's not that. But anyway, we can keep talking about this for hours and hours. If you were here, but I know everybody's got lives to live. and got to go down things. So let me know in the comment section. What do you think? What do you think about our views? Do you think how do you think United can turn this transfer window around? What do you think United can do? Where do you think where do you stand on the structural changes? Do you think we've actually made any changes, or do you think it's just cosmetic like I think it is? Let us know what you think. Smash like, of course, for Farhan and Mike for their views that they've given for this and for joining the show. We enjoyed that, of course. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. It's always a pleasure to have you both and sharing your opinions. And it's nice. You guys had some opposing opinions, so that's totally good. I felt sometimes I feel like this is what everybody thinks, but maybe I'm just a little bit. It's all in my head. Sometimes I feel like that. So it probably is. But
two truths can exist, man. You're not lying.
Yeah, well, they can. Yes, for sure. There can be two truths, or it's just a matter of like one of us will be proven right in a couple of years. I hope it's not me. But yeah, that could happen. But anyway, thank you guys. It's always great to have you. If you enjoyed the show, please do remember to smash a like and also share it. We'd appreciate that. Also remember to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, follow us on Facebook. Let's hope United do some business so we can do some reaction videos to those things. That's what we want. So don't blame me, blame the Glazers for me not doing videos. But anyway, if you subscribe, when we do videos, you will get notified about that. We appreciate your support, of course. Please enjoy. Take care. Have a good day or night, whatever time watching this. And see you again soon. Bye-bye.